Here are we back with heeding the cries of our children. The ancient ones give warning. So appropriate. This is chapter 9, Breathing the New. The sun was just beginning to set as Bob drove back roads surrounded by farmland. The dust of the dry dirt road swirled up behind him. The air was warm and fragrant with a pleasant hint of rain. His mind was thinking about his destination. The bumps on the road were familiar, as he made this trip often in the last 7 months. It was a shortcut from his apartment to Pam's, and he took it at every opportunity. Another half hour and he would be on the paved highway just 10 minutes east of her home. His thoughts roamed over the plans he had for the weekend. Rory and Jerry were always happy to put him up, but this time he'd reserved a room at the Hyatt. There was a great band scheduled there, and he planned to propose to Pam. He wanted it to be a spectacular evening, his heart filled with the thought of her. Bob had loved her from the moment he had seen her walking toward him in the mountain grove. He'd watched her movements that day and marveled at how familiar they had felt to him, like watching an old friend. Her face had shone with vitality, but it was her eyes that spoke to him. Words to an old song ran through his mind. When I touch you like this, and you hold me like that, it's all coming back to me now. That is how the past 3 months had been for him. He knew that it takes time to see a person, her motivations, and more of the hidden aspects. His steps in the relationship were careful and thoughtful. At first, he had approached their time together like a lawyer, a professional interrogator. He watched her as they interacted. He noticed her poise, her compassion, her attentiveness in her conversations. Despite the draw of his heart and, yes, his body, he stood back and made himself go slowly. Each encounter showed him the way Pam led her life, the words she used, the thoughts she expressed, the dreams she had. As she shared her pain and her dreams, Bob had listened. He noticed how she responded to the pain, whom she had turned to for help, and he watched to see if she would go into blame. All were valuable clues to him as to her character. He had often asked questions with the intent to learn more. The possibility of a life with Pam seemed too glorious to approach without thoughtful and respectful evaluation. He looked carefully at those he hired in his office. To do less with a possible mate seemed ludicrous, and he had loved what he had seen. Time slipped by, and soon the stop sign for the main highway loomed ahead. Bob slowed his car and stopped at the intersection. The highway traffic was sparse at this time of the afternoon. He waited just a few moments, and then there was an opening. He turned his car left and drove into the city. He felt the excitement and anticipation about his weekend plans. Certainly, he and Pam had talked about building a life together, but Bob had kept his proposal plans secret, or at least he hoped they were. Some deep connection existed between them that made keeping secrets difficult. The smoothly paved highway made driving easy. He drove past the road to Pam's house and on into the city. Just beyond the center of town, he pulled into the space reserved for check-in at the elegant Hyatt. Climbing out of his car, he walked to the main door. It opened into a large area where deep forest green and soft blues bid a warm welcome. A rock fireplace blazed, despite late summer warmth, and it cast a golden hue on the brass fixtures. Beautiful fresh flower arrangements were everywhere. Like shifting gears, Bob took several deep breaths to let go of the drive and walked to the check-in counter. After exchanging pleasantries and friendly chatter as he gave his information and signature, Bob had the room keys. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Hatcher. The continental breakfast is served in our southwest room from 7:30 a.m. until 10. If you need anything, just ring the front desk. Bob smiled his thanks, tucked his card and wallet back into his jacket pocket, and pushed open the front doors. As he put his car in reverse, he spotted a familiar figure in the grocery store parking lot across the street. He looked, observed. Yes, he was sure it was Jerry. Before he could decide whether to drive over and say hi, Jerry closed her car door and started the engine. Oh, well, I'll move my car and find our room. Anyway, this weekend is just for Pam and me. Bob watched Jerry drive away and made a mental note to call Rory and tell him that he almost had enough programmed crystals for the children's project. He would call him on Monday. Chapter 10, Open to More. Bob held Pam close. Her head lay on his shoulder, the music surrounding them, creating a world all their own as they danced. Pam lifted her eyes to his. The intensity of his feelings became too much, and Bob gently nestled her head close to his chin with his hand. He rested his hand on her head, and they moved to the music. In a world apart, they touched and caressed each other in gentle, magnetic ways. Pam's delicate fingers traced circles in Bob's palm. She stroked his cheek and neck and then reached up to lightly brush his lips with her fingertips. Bob drew her closer to him, playfully nibbling her ear. They both laughed. Their laughter softened the passion of their desires, and they pulled away in an improvised sweep step. Do you know how much I love you? Bob whispered in Pam's ear as she came close. Do we just catch the love and toss it back and forth? Asked Pam. I feel a well flowing inside of me when we're together. It seems just to bubble up. If I didn't let it spill out, it would burst, she whispered. The ballroom at the Hyatt seemed exceptionally beautiful tonight. The large picture windows opened to an astounding view of the small Northwest Bay. In the gathering dawn and low glow of the outside lights, Bob could see the waves rolling and gently crashing on the beach. There was a wind bending the trees on a small island that lay to the north of the bay. The island was home to 2 lonely pine trees, some low shrubs, and tall grasses. Birds glided in the air currents despite the coming of night. Yes, he thought, this is the perfect place to propose. I feel so safe and happy around you, said Pam. I guess that's what love does. It provides space to be yourself, not judged by shoulds, by your pain, or even your far-out ideas, Bob laughed. Actually, for me, the word love isn't enough for what I feel for you, he said thoughtfully. I could say I love you, I respect you, I honor you, I delight in you because I love you, but the truth is, I have listened to your dreams and fears. I have seen how you lead your life, how you do your life, and that is why I love you. He drew her closer. She laid her head upon his neck and against his neck, and the music ended. Bob and Pam walked hand in hand to their table by the large windows. Redwood tables and chairs filled the outside patio. The roof extended the full length of the deck with flower baskets hanging everywhere. White, pink, yellow, flowers spilled down, creating an overhead garden. Several couples seemed lost in each other. One pair was ordering drinks and laughing at a joke the waitress had told. The red and orange of the setting sun spread from the horizon, making a vibrant backdrop to the small island off the coast. Bob and Pam sat and watched in silence, comfortable just being with one another. As the band began to play again, Bob stood, held Pam's hand, lifted her to her feet. He gathered her into his arms and they glided onto the dance floor. Bob looked deep into Pam's eyes as they slowed their dance and held each other and swayed to the music. Pam, I want us to spend the rest of our lives together. Pam's eyes filled with tears. He brushed them gently away with his finger, kissed her eyes, first the left and then the right. She melted into his body. Bob reached into his jacket pocket, found the ring he had placed there. Gently brushing her hair away from her ear, he whispered, "My love, will you marry me?" Pulling herself back from his tight embrace, Pam placed her fingers to her lips. "Oh, yes," she said. The music played. Their bodies swayed as one. Bob carefully orchestrated the ring onto her finger and drew her close. He smiled and thanked all that was good for her and for the promise of their life together.